Ethan Walker had built an empire with his bare hands, thousands of acres, millions in the bank, and a fortress-like ranch in the heart of Montana. But none of it prepared him for what he saw that day. Three little girls identical, no more than 3 years old, emerged from the dust behind his truck, like ghosts from the past, mud-covered dresses. Hollow eyes, not a word between them, and then one of them stepped forward, holding a filthy rag doll with a piece of paper stitched to its chest. "Help Mrs. Louise, very sick. No food, no medicine. Old Pine Creek cabin." Ethan stared at the note, his heartbeat pounding louder than his engine. He knew that cabin, abandoned, forgotten. No one should be out there, but someone was, and as he turned the truck around, unaware of the storm he was about to drive into, he didn't realize one simple truth yet. He wasn't saving them. They were saving him. What happened next would not only challenge everything Ethan thought he knew about love, family, and redemption, it would change all of their lives forever. The late afternoon sun spilled golden light across the endless grasslands of Montana, painting the horizon in warm hues as a dust cloud spiraled behind a blue pickup truck. Behind the wheel sat Ethan Walker, a 45-year-old ranch owner whose wealth had earned him respect but whose eyes had long forgotten how to smile. Years ago, Ethan had everything: business success, sprawling land, and a wife who made it all worth it. But since Sarah's death, silence had claimed the halls of Walker Ridge Ranch. That day, as he left a successful investor meeting in town, Ethan felt the familiar ache of coming home to no one. His radio murmured a song about family and second chances. He clicked it off. Too ironic, as his truck bounced along the dirt road that curved around the eastern boundary of his property. Something flickered in the rearview mirror. He frowned, squinting. Was that movement? He slowed. Dust clouded the air as he brought the truck to a stop. Three tiny figures emerged through the haze, walking no trudging along the dirt road. Ethan stepped out of his truck, his boots crunching on gravel. As the dust settled, his breath caught three little girls. They were identical triplets, maybe 3 years old, with tangled blonde hair, mud-caked dresses, and smudges across their faces. They walked hand in hand, small shoes nearly falling apart. The girl in the middle clutched a limp, ragged doll to her chest, like it was the last thing she owned. Ethan instinctively dropped to one knee. "Hey there," he said gently, trying not to frighten them. "Are you lost?" The girls froze. Their wide, tired eyes locked onto him. They didn't cry, they didn't speak, but there was something behind their silence that pierced him, a haunting mix of fear and fragile hope. He looked around, no sign of adults. Just miles of golden fields and a sky too big to offer any help. Then the middle girl stepped forward. Her small hands trembled as she extended the doll toward him. Pinned to its dress was a faded piece of paper. Ethan slowly unfolded it. "Help Mrs. Louise, very sick. No food, no medicine. Old Pine Creek cabin." His stomach dropped. He knew that place. An old, half-collapsed hunting cabin near the far end of his ranch. No one had lived there in years at least. No one who was supposed to. "Okay," he said softly, standing. "Come on, girls, let's go. Help Mrs. Louise." They didn't smile, they didn't cheer. They simply nodded and followed him to the truck, moving as one. As the truck rattled toward the edge of the property, Ethan kept glancing in the rearview mirror. Three little faces stared back at him, silent, dirt-streaked, and watching his every move like they were measuring whether they could trust him. The closer they got to Old Pine Creek cabin, the more Ethan's gut twisted. He had meant to tear the place down. Now it might be someone's last shelter. When they arrived, smoke curled faintly from the chimney. The porch sagged under its own weight. The cabin looked like it had been forgotten by time. The girls climbed down and huddled close to each other. The one with the doll, he still didn't know her name, pointed at the door, her urgency palpable. Ethan knocked. "Hello, anyone inside?" No response. He opened the door slowly. The air inside was warm, stale, and far too quiet. A single-room shelter meticulously kept despite the poverty, and on the threadbare cot, barely breathing, was an elderly woman, Mrs. Louise. He said, rushing to her. Her eyes fluttered open. "The girls, thank God," she whispered, her voice raw. Ethan grabbed a rag and gently wiped her forehead. She was burning with fever. "They've been alone?" he asked in disbelief. "Istana," Louise coughed. "Emily, Sophie, Lily." She nodded toward each girl as they stepped into the room. Their mother, my niece, left them months ago. Said she'd be back. She never came. Ethan looked around. Empty cabinets, melting candle stubs, a cracked bowl with crumbs. The girls had been surviving together without help. "You all need a hospital," he said. Mrs. Louise grasped his sleeve weakly. "Promise, don't separate them." At that, the girls moved in unison to the side of the cot, joining hands. Emily, the one with the doll, looked up at him with eyes that seemed far older than 3 years. Ethan didn't hesitate. "I promise." He made the call. The ambulance was on the way, but something told him the real rescue had just begun. As he helped the girls gather what few belongings they had, a torn book, a handmade bracelet, a doll with a note sewn into it, he realized something terrifying and profound. They had appeared out of nowhere. No words, no demands, just quiet desperation, and yet in barely an hour they had shattered the walls he had spent 5 years building around his heart. In the fading light as he stood with the triplets outside the cabin and watched the sun set behind the Montana hills, Ethan Walker felt something shift deep inside. Maybe he hadn't been saving them. Maybe they had been sent to save him. To be continued. I'm so sorry to pause the story here, but I promise the next part will bring even more emotional twists and powerful moments. What would you have done if 3 little strangers showed up at your doorstep like this? Do you believe people can find family in the most unexpected places? Let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if this story touched your heart, please tap the like button and show us some love. The emergency lights faded in the distance as the ambulance carried Mrs. Louise Carter toward the nearest hospital, leaving Ethan Walker alone with 3 silent girls, and a gut-wrenching sense of responsibility he hadn't asked for, but now couldn't walk away from. Back in his truck, the girls sat huddled together on the back seat, clinging to each other, like they were the last pieces holding the world together. Emily, the one with the doll, kept her eyes fixed on the road, like she was memorizing every turn just in case. Sophie leaned against her sister's shoulder, her thumb in her mouth trembling, and Lily. She stared directly at Ethan through the rearview mirror, unblinking, not frightened, not trusting, just watching. He felt it again, that quiet pressure building behind his ribs. These weren't just lost kids. They were survivors. "I'm taking you home," he said softly, even though the word didn't feel quite right. Home was what they had lost, what he had forgotten how to offer. Walker Ridge Ranch came into view like a fortress under the Montana sky. Stone, glass, steel, and miles of empty silence. The girls pressed against the window, wide-eyed. They didn't say a word, but Ethan could feel the weight of their doubt. Would they be allowed to stay, or was this just another stop before being left again? Tom Harris, the ranch's longtime manager, met them at the steps, eyebrows raised. "Business associates?" he asked cautiously. Ethan shook his head. "Children, 3 of them." "They'll be staying." Tom blinked, then simply nodded. "I'll prep the guest wing." Inside, the girls froze in the grand foyer, hesitant to move. The house, with its polished wood floors and echoing ceilings, seemed too clean to touch. Too unfamiliar to trust. Emily stepped forward, first pulling the others with her. "Are you hungry?" Ethan asked, awkward, in his own kitchen. 3 hesitant nods. Mrs. Hoffman, the housekeeper, had left beef stew warming on the stove. The aroma filled the space, but the girls remained standing as if waiting for permission to exist. Ethan pulled out a chair. "Please sit." They didn't sit separately. All 3 clambered into a single chair and ate silently, carefully, like they were rationing survival. He noticed them slipping bread into their pockets when they thought he wasn't looking. That night, Tom led them upstairs, showing off the 3 beautifully prepared rooms, hand-stitched blankets, new beds, toys still in packaging. It should have felt magical, but it didn't. The reaction was instant and heartbreaking. Sophie burst into tears. Lily grabbed Emily's hand. And Emily, always the brave one, stepped in front, shook her head, and said the first word Ethan had heard from her since they'd met together. Ethan knelt. "You each have your own special room, but..." "No," Emily said. Her voice didn't crack. It was small, but it carried the weight of history. That night, he found them asleep on the floor of one room, curled up near the door. Their possessions packed beside them, like they might have to leave again at any moment. He stood in the hallway, watching a blanket draped over one arm. Then he stepped inside and gently covered them. "Grace, no. Lily opened her eyes just for a moment, that unblinking stare again. She didn't flinch, she simply watched him, evaluating, measuring, waiting. And then just before closing her eyes again, she did something that nearly undid him. She scooted an inch closer to her sisters and left a space beside her. Not much, just enough, an invitation. Ethan barely slept that night. He kept replaying every moment in his head, every glance, every movement, every time one of them flinched at a closing door or a sudden sound. They weren't just afraid of the dark, they were afraid of people. The next morning he called in someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Mrs. Nancy Bell, a retired kindergarten teacher, known for her fierce heart and gentle hands. When she arrived, her silver hair tucked in a bun and her arms full of storybooks, the girls stared at her like she was made of glass. But she didn't push. She read stories aloud while they listened from a distance, half hidden behind chairs. And then something unexpected happened. A small border collie. Puppy bounded into the room. Tom had picked him up from town the day before. The puppy yipped and wagged nose, nuzzling toward the girls. Sophie flinched. Emily stood still. But Lily reached out. Her hand trembled just barely as she touched the puppy's head, and when he licked her fingers, her mouth formed something Ethan had almost forgotten existed: a smile. That afternoon, the three girls sat on a blanket in the backyard. The puppy nestled between them while Ethan watched from the porch with a coffee. He didn't drink. The walls in his house hadn't just been made of wood and stone. They'd been made of grief. But now three little strangers were starting to chip away at them, and he didn't know if he was more afraid of the fact that he was letting them, or that he didn't want them to stop, to be continued. I'm truly sorry for cutting the story here, but trust me, the next chapter will take everything you've just felt and turn it up tenfold. If you were in Ethan's shoes, what would you have done after finding those girls asleep on the floor? Do you believe children can teach us to feel again after we've shut down? Where are you watching from? We'd love to know. And if this story moved you even a little, please tap the like button and share your support. Snowflakes danced across the sky as winter draped Walker Ridge Ranch in a blanket of white. It had been nearly 3 months since 3 little girls showed up on Ethan Walker's dusty road, and yet everything had changed. The house that once echoed with silence now pulsed with the rhythm of laughter, soft footsteps, and bedtime stories. Emily, Sophie, and Lily, no longer strangers. No longer shadows, were beginning to bloom. Ethan watched from the porch as the girls helped Tom Harris carry buckets of feed to the barn. Emily took the lead, steady and focused. Sophie skipped behind her, humming softly, and Lily quiet. Lily walked beside the dog Ranger, observing everything with those wide, calculating eyes that missed nothing. Each night, Ethan would tuck them into a shared bedroom, still too afraid to sleep apart, and read them stories under a blanket fort they insisted never come down. The word home had started to mean something again. Not just to them, but peace as always wasn't meant to last. The letter came in a pale blue envelope. The name on the return address sent a chill down Ethan's spine. Vanessa Carter, the girls' biological mother. The woman who had abandoned them. The contents were worse than expected. She wanted them back. She had contacted child services. A court date had been set. The days that followed were a storm of emotion. Ethan didn't tell the girls not yet. How do you explain to children who've just learned to trust that the person who walked away now wants to return? Claire Mitchell, the social worker, arrived with more news. Vanessa was claiming she had changed. She was working stable, rehabilitated, but Ethan's gut told him otherwise. And then came the visit. It was supposed to be supervised, calm and safe. It wasn't. Vanessa arrived in a sleek rental car, dressed like she was attending a gala, not reconnecting with 3 terrified children. She burst through the living room, tears painted on like makeup. "My babies," she cried. The girls froze. Emily instinctively stepped in front of her sisters. Sophie began to cry, and Lily just stared unreadable until she quietly slipped behind Ethan's leg and held on. Vanessa reached out. "Don't you recognize Mommy?" 3 little heads shook in unison. Claire stepped in, voice firm. "Let's slow things down," but it was too late. The damage had already been done. The court hearing came faster than Ethan was ready for. That morning, the girls dressed in matching blue cardigans they'd picked themselves. Emily clutched her ragged doll. Sophie carried a small stuffed horse, and Lily held Ethan's hand all the way into the courthouse. Inside, the judge, Marilyn Hayes, listened with sharp eyes and a softer heart than she let on. Vanessa's lawyers painted her as a mother who had simply fallen on hard times. They spoke of second chances, of reuniting a broken family. But when it came time for Ethan's side to speak the truth, rose like a wave photos, medical records, testimonies from Claire, from Mrs. Nancy Bell, from Tom Harris, from the girl's pediatrician, evidence of malnourishment, of abandonment, of healing. And then came the girls themselves. The judge asked to speak with them privately. When they returned, Sophie had a faint smile on her face, Emily sat taller, and Lily, she looked up at Ethan and gave the smallest, quietest nod. Judge Hayes removed her glasses. In chambers, she said, "I asked the girls where they felt safe." Lily, the quietest of the three, answered, and I quote, "Jack makes the monsters go away and doesn't yell when we spill juice." She paused, letting the silence fall heavy. Biology matters, but love defines a parent. Her gavel came down. Permanent guardianship is granted to Ethan Walker. Full adoption proceedings may begin immediately. The courtroom erupted in quiet joy. Claire smiled. Tom wiped his eyes, and Ethan, once so alone, knelt as the girls raced into his arms. "Does this mean we stay?" Emily asked. "Yes," he whispered. "As long as you want." The word Lily spoke next sealed everything. Forever, the holidays that year were like nothing Walker Ridge had ever seen. A 12-foot pine tree sparkled in the great room, each branch hung with tiny hand-painted ornaments, clay handprints, paper snowflakes, photos of first rides on horseback. Emily, Sophie, and Lily danced through the snow with Ranger, their boots kicking up powder, their laughter echoing across the hills. By spring, they had separate rooms but still migrated to each other during storms. Ethan didn't mind. He kept the nightlights on and the hallway doors open. The formal adoption was finalized on their 4th birthday. A celebration followed with neighbors, ranch hands, and friends gathered in the field near the lake. A simple sign read, "Welcome home, Walker Girls." Later that evening, as the girls chased fireflies by the water, Ethan sat on the porch with a cup of tea and a full heart. Lily joined him, holding a drawing in her hand. It showed 5 stick figures beneath a glowing sun. Ethan, the girls, and Ranger. She had written one word above them, careful block letters filling the page, "Home." And in that moment, Ethan knew he hadn't saved them. They had saved him and you. What would you have done if the court tried to take them away? Do you believe real love is something you choose, not something you're born into? What did you think of this story? If you loved it, comment no 3. If it was just okay, type no 2. And if you think we could have told it better, that's okay too. Just leave no 1. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and tap that heart to show your love.